All right, so now we're live, and I'm excited to have you here, Lisa of FreshEggsDaily.com, and she is here with, okay, I said the duck's name wrong. What's her name again?
Her name is Adelaide.
Adeline. Oh, that's pretty. Where did you come up with that name?
She just told me that's what her name was. No, I don't know. She just looks like an Adelaide.
She's beautiful. Oh, look at her. She's cuddling with you.
Yeah.
So
That's fun.
You were just showing me that she was happy, that she was smiling.
Yeah, she was smiling. She had a little smile on her face.
Were you just pulling my leg, or is that for real?
Oh, no, I think they always smile. Like their little bills, they go up at the end. I think ducks smile all the time.
Aw.
Come on.
She's a pretty
Shy.
She's a pretty baby. Yeah. So, I mean, I was just sharing with you the only thing I didn't like about raising rabbits here in my garden was the fact that, I'm a cat person, so I'm used to hearing them purr. So you knew when a cat was happy, where with a rabbit, you didn't really know. I mean, there were certain things you could look for with them. Is there a certain way with the ducks that you can tell that they're happy?
Well, pretty much now. I mean, you can tell she's pretty content. When they're not happy, they get really loud and they quack a lot and they just get all agitated. But I mean, you can tell she's okay with life.
She's cute. Can you feel her heart beating or anything? Like it's racing or?
Yeah, they are like rabbits. Their hearts beat really, really fast. They have a fast pulse.
Okay, that's really cool. She's beautiful. I love her markings.
Yeah, she's really pretty. The Anconas are spotted. Like she has a white belly.
Aww.
That's kind of like what she looks like.
That's really cute.
Oh, I know.
So people primarily, raise the ducks for their eggs, right? Well, they can be meat ducks too, but we hope they raise them for the eggs, right?
Right, yeah.
Is there a certain breed that people should look into?
Pretty much ducks are really good layers. Our ducks lay all year round. They lay better than our chickens. So pretty much any breed is going to lay lots of eggs, and usually outlay your chickens. So, she actually, whoops, where's my egg? My egg. She lays green eggs, but, this is a white duck egg. So you can see they're pretty big, a lot bigger than a chicken egg.
Okay. So where did you just bring that egg from? Were you sitting on it?
Oh no, I had it on the hay bale. I brought it. It was actually a refrigerator, but I just brought it with me so I could show you how big a duck egg is compared to a chicken egg. Just put it up there.
It looked a little funny. I have a little bit of a delay here. I was like, what? Sorry. So, well, I have both your books with me actually. I don't know if you can you see those?
Yep.
Awesome. And so they're both great books. They're like the perfect size. I love this book. So now the duck eggs daily just came out. It's been maybe a month, if that, right?
Yeah, October 15th. So about 6 weeks ago.
Very exciting. Do you need to put her down?
She's good. She's keeping me warm, actually. She's really, really warm.
That's awesome. So, you've been so busy. I mean, you just recently moved to Maine, and so you had to set up a new coop, right? The ducks.
Right.
The ducks and the chickens, are they roommates or what's going on there?
They are. Yeah, they're bunking together for the winter. I like to keep them separate because ducks make a mess, and they don't really sleep at night like chickens do. So I do like to keep them separate. But for this first winter, we're going to keep them all together so everybody, keeps each other warm. And that ducks do let off a lot of body heat, so they should keep the chickens warm too. So,
very cool.
Stand up.
do they seem to get
over being interviewed?
Yeah.
they get along. The ducks are in charge. So once the chickens realize that, then everything goes fine.
Okay. Yeah, they just, you got it.
All right, ask me another question. I'm going to put her down. She's kind of over this interview.
Okay, no worries.
Say bye-bye, Adelaide.
Bye. Oh, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. Yeah. So, you're going to have to tell me how old that duck is. And so I know with chickens, they're best, they lay eggs better when they're younger and when it's warm outside, right?
Right. Yeah. Adelaide was just hatched this last spring. She's really young. She only, she's not even a year old yet. She started laying in September, maybe. So she should lay for probably another 5 years. Chickens lay for maybe 2, 3, 4 years, and ducks will lay another year or so after that. So she's just starting out.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you think the ducks are just as popular as chickens?
Not yet. I don't think that they are, and they really should be, because I find them easier to raise. They're a lot more healthy. In the cold, they're a lot easier because they're not as intolerant of cold. They do a lot better when it is cold out. So especially moving up here to Maine, I actually thought about just raising ducks and not raising chickens anymore. And my husband was like, no, your whole thing is about chickens. So you have to keep raising the chickens. But I'm really worried about the chickens getting cold this winter, and the ducks will be fine. The ducks are super cold hardy. So that's a good thing. Yeah.
That's good to know. So, I'm assuming there's certain varieties, or breeds, not varieties, breeds, that I'm thinking plants. So up north, there's probably a different breed of duck you would raise compared to when you just came from North Carolina, South Carolina, right?
Virginia,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, actually, all the duck breeds really do well. With chickens, there are cold hardy breeds that do a lot better in the northern climates. Some of they have bigger bodies, they have smaller combs. But with ducks, pretty much all the breeds do really well in the winter. They don't have combs on the top of their heads to worry about getting frostbite or anything. So at night, they just kind of tuck their head under their wing, and they tuck their feet up into their bellies, and they're just like a big ball of down and feathers. So they stay really warm.
That's cool. Do you ever sneak into the coop at night and take photos of them?
I don't, because that would be weird. No.
Come on.
No, I had a trail cam in our coop for a while one summer, and it was really funny because the chickens seemed to catch on, and I had a whole bunch of selfies. Like, they would walk up and get their picture taken and then walk away, and the whole thing was just hundreds and hundreds of close-ups of them walking right up to the camera. So
that's really cool. They must have known what was going on, maybe, huh?
I think they caught on. Yeah.
Okay. I obviously I get really attached to animals, and anyhow. So I want to let you know that we actually have some people on the chat here. I don't know if you can see on the screen. Actually, it's going to be reversed, I believe. It should be on the right-hand side of your screen, and people can ask questions. I wanted to let you know that we have someone from the UK hosting network too. He said that he's watching us on a TV right now. I believe he's in London, maybe. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, my friend Clint at Harvest Pathways. You can follow him on Twitter, Harvest Pathway. he has a question. What type of duck breed do you recommend for egg production?
Well, as I mentioned, ducks really are all pretty good layers, but khaki Campbells, runner ducks, Welsh Harlequins are probably the best as far as laying goes. But like right now, I have a dozen ducks and 11 chickens, and we're getting about 3 or 4 duck eggs a day and maybe 1 chicken egg. So ducks in general are just going to lay a lot better than your chickens do.
That's pretty cool. You know, I don't think I've ever actually, I see a lot of local eggs from chickens. Like my neighbor raises chickens, and a few other family farms around here raise the chickens. But I've never actually seen the duck eggs. Do you recommend, like, is there a place we could find the egg to try it?
Well, probably a farmer's market. We went to, it's an indoor market, but it's like kind of like a Whole Foods, but like a local Whole Foods in Bangor last weekend. And they had the fresh chicken eggs, and they also had duck eggs, and they were selling for, I think, $6.49 for 6. So if you do raise ducks and you can find someone who wants to sell your eggs, you can make some good money. You know, they sell for a lot more than chicken eggs because they're not as popular or as easy to find. But I would definitely say check out farmer's market, or maybe even Craigslist. Like if you look, someone who sells ducklings, they might actually, be willing to sell you some eggs too.
That's a great tip.
Or you could just ask your friend to mail them.
Yeah. So you might mail me one?
I could mail you this one. Actually, I've mailed a dozen eggs to my mom before, and they get there fine, but the shipping, because they're so heavy, the shipping is just insane, to ship a dozen eggs, but it can be done.
I almost wonder if, so when we raised rabbits, we were a part of ARBA, which is the American Rabbit Association, right? Is there something like that for ducks that you know of?
I think it's more by breed. Like there are a lot of breed societies and groups, and the Livestock Conservancy does a lot with ducks because a lot of the breeds are on their critical list because not as many people are raising them, So other than like the really big commercial duck farms, there aren't a lot of flocks around the country. So the Livestock Conservancy does a lot trying to really promote the different breeds and get people interested in them. And that's part of the reason I was so excited to write my duck book, because if you already have chickens, adding some ducks is not a big deal. I mean, they can share the coop, they can share the run. Mine eat the same food. They like different treats, but I just give them treats and everyone kind of eats what they want to. So it's not difficult to add a couple ducks to your flock if you already have chickens. And I'm surprised more people don't, because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're pretty too.
They are, and they're so cute. And,
Yeah. That was her markings were just cute. I had a cat that was black and white once, and it's just a pretty color, right? So anyways, so we have another question, and feel free, if you're joining us today, please ask any questions you may have right there on the little chat bar there. It's kind of fun. Are you having a good time so far, Lisa?
I'm having fun. Yeah. In fact, I just answered his question. He asked what part of Maine we're in. We're kind of southwest of Bangor, so kind of central Maine. Okay. And it's cold. It's a lot colder than Virginia, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's probably going to take a little for you to get used to coming from the south. But yeah. I'll tell you what, I enjoy following you on Instagram and Twitter and on your Facebook. You're really active, and you show some amazing photographs of your homestead, basically. I mean, that's pretty much what you've got going there, huh?
Yeah, it's really pretty here. And I mean, we got here in August. So pretty much we were just worried about getting the coop ready, building a run, and that. So I didn't really get any gardening done. It wasn't the right time of year anyway. But in the spring, I'm really excited to start, some gardens and get going with that, because I just missed this whole garden season this year because of the move. Sure.
And we need to, I'll be working on you with that whole garden aspect there. In fact, Harvest Pathways you need to talk to him, because I could totally see a dome at your homestead. And I think you
Well, and
guys
he
live
just said
close by.
he said he's in Amherst. I'll have to look where that is, but I know that New Hampshire like runs up the side of Maine, so it's really possible that, or it's probable that we're in the same planting zone. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in a dome, you can kind of override a lot of the planting zone issues, right? So he's in
That would be
Harding.
he said he's 5.
Yeah.
I think we are the same zone, but yeah, you're right. I mean, my growing season just got shortened considerably because, you know, in Virginia, I would start planting in like February, you know, peas and things like that. I'd start my seedlings and, you know, we were harvesting like all the way through October, November, and then I would plant Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, and I could do that all the way through till spring. You know, so really you could garden year round in Virginia, and here, not so much.
Right. I liked one cool thing about raising poultry that I'm picking up from you is I had a few greens that were left in my garden, my outside garden. I had tweeted or I Facebooked some collard greens I had, and I was trying to figure out what the heck do I do with these? They look great. I didn't want to waste them, and you told me to throw them to the chickens. So that's a really nice way because you're kind of recycling in a way, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't waste anything. You know, when I pull out the plants or whatever, they all go to the chickens. You know, any leftovers from dinner, when we go out to dinner, you know, I bring home any leftovers, like that little piece of kale or parsley that they garnish your plate with. I always bring that home for the ducks because they really like that. And I mean, nobody eats it. So, you know, I feel like going around the whole restaurant to all the tables going, can I have your kale?
Right. You and Harvest Pathway Clint would get along. He doesn't like kale, so and it grows great. That's the bummer, right?
Right, it does. It really does, and it's really nutritious too. I mean, it's good for you, good for the ducks.
Right. So, if someone was new to raising ducks, what would you recommend as far as like a coop? Like, what kind of space are we talking here? Do you need a big house for them, or what can you put them in?
No, not at all. I mean, they're probably only sleeping in it. So we had, when we started out, we had 3 ducks, and I had taken an old wooden dog house. It was like maybe 3x4, you know, a regular dog house. And I put a door on it with a lock, you know, so nothing could get in at them. And I cut a hole, you know, for some ventilation. And those 3 ducks lived in that dog house. They slept in there at night, and then they had a big pen during the day. So, I mean, you only need maybe 4 square feet of floor space for each duck. And they sleep on the floor. So unlike chickens, you know, you need roosting bars and you need nesting boxes, and it has to be this whole elaborate thing. And for ducks, you just really need somewhere safe where a raccoon or fox or whatever isn't going to get at them. You can use a dog house, you can use a shed, an old playhouse, you know, pretty much anything that you can just get a lock on the door and make it safe for them.
Very cool. And so, you know, we kind of touch base on, you know, critters getting at them. So I'm here in Northwest Ohio. We're starting to get quite a lot of the eagles back and the falcon and that. And, you know, it's really important that our runs are covered. I would never leave any poultry just out free roaming unless I'm like right there because, you know, that eagle is pretty random. And, you know, would you recommend, you know, definitely having them covered, or do you have any tips on, you know, keeping the poultry safe?
Yeah. Well, ducks are bigger and they're heavier. So, I mean, they're not quite as susceptible to hawks, especially some of the smaller hawks. But an eagle, definitely. I mean, an eagle can carry away a small dog or cat, you know. So the ducks are really slow on the ground. They can't fly. Domestic ducks can't fly. So, you know, they're just really vulnerable. So same as you, I only let them out like in the late afternoon when I'm outside with them. And the rest of the time they're in a pen and it's covered. So they're safe. Cause you're right. I mean, the eagles and hawks and stuff is just so random. One will fly by, or actually first all the ducks will freeze and they'll all look up. And so I know there's something out there. And sure enough, you look and there's like a hawk going by, or an airplane, or a leaf falling. I mean, pretty much anything up in the air. They're like, danger, danger. But they just freeze, so if something was going to get them, they just stand there. So, yeah.
Not a good thing. But you're bringing up great points, though. I mean, comparing them to the chicken, it seems like ducks may be a little easier than chicken, kind of because, for instance, you say they don't fly. I know our neighbor with their chickens, they have to clip their wings, which kind of freaked me out. Sorry, I'm not a chicken person. But see, with ducks, you wouldn't have to do that. So they're kind of low maintenance, right? Maybe
right.
A little bit.
Yeah. They are. I mean, when they're younger, like Adelaide's brother likes to fly. He runs down the hill and then he takes off. But I mean, he only gets like 2 feet off the ground, and that's only because he's little. Once he's full grown, he won't be able to fly. So even with gardening, if you have gardens, you only need maybe a 2-foot fence around them to keep the ducks out. Whereas, I mean, a chicken can clear a 4-foot fence, a 5-foot fence. Right. So as far as, working ducks into your gardening, they're a lot easier to keep confined. Or if you just want them in your yard and you don't want them to fly over the fence into your neighbor's yard, I do find ducks a lot easier. They don't get as sick as chickens. A lot of the chicken diseases and that ducks just don't get. They don't tend to get mites or lice or anything like that because they swim so much. So ticks or anything that gets on them is just going to get drowned. So I find ducks incredibly low maintenance. Very
cool. So you just brought up the idea of them. Well, they swim. So if we were to have a coop or something and you live in town, what would you do? Just set up like a kiddie pool or something for the ducks, or yeah.
Yeah, it's not the swimming so much. I mean, they don't like do laps or anything, but they just like to get in and splash around. So a kiddie pool or two. We have an old horse trough that we use. You can get big tubs or something. Yeah, they're fine as long as they just have something they can hop into and splash around. And they don't even need it every day. So like now that it's cold, I dump their pool out and it's in the garage, and I'll just fill it up on nice days for them for a treat. But they definitely don't need, to swim every day.
Okay. So we have a question there from Hosting Network too. He was curious, do fresh eggs break easier? If they do, can you explain that to us?
I don't think so. I mean, I actually think that our eggs, the shells are stronger. If your chickens are eating a good diet and they have the extra calcium, either eggshell or oyster shell, they're going to have really strong eggs. And duck egg shells are even thicker than chicken egg shells. I mean, I've dropped eggs on the ground and they just bounce. I mean, sometimes you really, really have to work at it to get a duck egg to break because the shells are really, really thick. So I think store-bought eggs actually, the shells are thinner. And if you do have chickens and the shells are really thin, then I would make sure that they have calcium all the time in like a little feeder separate, so they can eat as much as they want.
So no, ask all the questions you have. No question is a bad question. Hosting Network. I appreciate that. And, it's great. I ask some pretty silly questions. Lisa knows me. She can vouch for that. Right. So, the number one thing on my mind is what can you cook up with these goose eggs? Or, duck eggs. Sorry. Goose duck.
Duck eggs. Well, actually, as I said, our chickens pretty much stop laying in the winter. Right now they're molting. So they're growing in their new feathers for the winter, and they generally don't lay eggs when they're molting. So our chickens are like on strike. They're molting. The shorter days, it gets cold. They don't want to lay anymore. So basically all we're getting now is duck eggs. So that's all we eat. And, I fry them up. I scramble them. You can use them in omelets. In my duck book, there's a whole chapter of recipes. Some things that I just really like to use. Yeah, right there. Some things that I really like to use the duck eggs before, they do have a little bit of a stronger taste. So if you put them, like I happen to love cheese. So, if you make an omelet with blue cheese or a real sharp cheddar, the egg is a bit stronger tasting. So it can stand up to those stronger cheeses. And I like to use a lot of herbs too, like scrambled duck eggs with some fresh dill or basil or tarragon, a little olive oil. You don't really need much because they do taste so good.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I see you. You have a recipe in here for fresh mint chip ice cream. Yum. I would have never imagined that.
Yeah, and pretty much, anything to do with chicken eggs, you can do with duck eggs. Duck eggs do have a higher fat content. So when you bake with them, your baked goods are fluffier and a little bit richer. But yeah, making ice cream out of duck eggs is really awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny. I forget, there was a gardener once who said, that nature provides us with what we need, like out in the garden, like you'll find certain plants that grow in your area, and it's because you need them there. You would survive with those plants. So when you mentioned the duck eggs being high in fat and then producing mostly in the winter, that kind of makes sense because it's nice to have a little extra protein and fat in the winter, isn't it? Just a thought.
Right. That's true. They're full of fat in the summer too, but I think like anything else, if you're eating fresh and local and real foods, I don't worry about, like using real butter, real cream, real eggs, that's just the way I want to eat. And I don't worry about calories or fat content, or I just worry if the food I'm eating is fresh, real food. And I think, as long as you don't eat like way too much of it, you're going to be fine. So people ask, how many eggs can I eat a week? Or, I'm worried about cholesterol from the eggs because duck eggs do have more cholesterol too, but it's, they've done studies that the cholesterol in foods isn't necessarily what contributes to high cholesterol in a person. It's a lot genetic. It's how your body processes that. So for each person, it's different. But I eat eggs almost every day. My grandmother raised chickens and she ate eggs almost every day, and she lived to be 99 years old. So I really don't think that eating a lot of eggs is a problem. They're a complete protein. They have so many nutrients in them. So I think that, I think it's okay to eat a lot of eggs.
I think you made some great points, especially being able to raise your own, what the animal's been fed, and, like anything, just, don't overdo it, right?
Right. Yep. And people always ask, how many chickens should I get? They don't know, like we eat, a dozen eggs a week. So how many chickens should we get? And I tell people that once you start raising the chickens, you're going to eat a lot more eggs than you did before, just because you have them and they're available. And, it doesn't mean an extra trip to the grocery store to bring home that dozen eggs. And, you find almost every meal, not just breakfast, but, if I'm breading pork chops or chicken cutlets or whatever, I use the egg as breading. I bake a lot more. So I think you really need to realize that you're going to start eating a lot more eggs than you did when you figure out how many chickens or ducks you want to raise.
Sure. So, being a gardener.
Here's a question. Oh, you see the question?
I think you answered.
Oh no, I was going to say that the question from Harvest Pathway.
I think you answered it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you kind of covered that with the cholesterol and everything. So, being a gardener, I have to ask you about the poop. Let's talk duck poop. Can you use that?
That's actually a really good question. Yeah. Chicken manure and duck manure are both really, really good, for compost. I use straw in my coop, and when I rake it out, I just kind of rake it into a pile and it decomposes, and I use it on the garden. But unlike horse manure or cow manure, the chicken manure is hot. So you have to let it age or it'll burn your plants. So you really don't want to, rake it out of your coop and throw it on your garden. Like I'll rake it out of my coop now and throw it on the garden, and by spring it'll be ready to use. But yeah, it's a great free compost source. And ducks, when I dump out our duck pool, I can just kind of dump it like through the fence of the run. The grass on the other side is amazing. It's like neon green. It grows really, really well. I mean, it's really good for your grass too. So, if your ducks are walking around your yard pooping and your husband is complaining that there's duck poop everywhere, you just tell him that that's free fertilizer and he really shouldn't complain about it.
Right. Nothing beats the all natural, right?
And not that that's ever happened at our house, but I'm saying just in case.
That's awesome. So if you're just joining us or if you're on, please feel free to ask some questions over in the, it's going to be on the right-hand side of your screen. And we're talking today with Lisa of Fresh Eggs Daily and her gorgeous new book. I tell you what, Lisa, this is a great book for all ages. My little niece has been a fan of yours since the first book. But the pictures are just gorgeous.
Nice.
They're gorgeous. And people
yeah, I wanted it.
Where would you recommend people order your book from?
Well, you can order it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and your Barnes & Noble store should carry it. It's also at Books A Million. And a lot of gift or feed stores or places like that are also carrying it too. But for sure, you can always get it on Amazon.
Very cool. And then, of course, there's a link on your website at fresheggsdaily.com, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay.
There
so
is.
I don't see any new questions, but I want to ask you, we're getting close to the end of the year here. Can people find you at any speaking events coming up that you want to share?
I'm not doing any from now till the end of the year. I will be at the Mother Earth News Fair in April in Asheville, North Carolina, which I'm really excited about because I've never been there. And you and I actually went to the Country Living Fair last year in Ohio. And I'm hoping to go back there for one or two of the Country Living Fairs. So if anyone's planning on going to those, I mean, whether or not I'm there, they're really fun. Bren and I had an awesome time at the fair last year. It's fun. It's a little village and there's stuff to buy and look at and workshops and all that. So
it was a great time, great people. And you had a lot of fans. You always have a lot of fans with you. That's awesome. It's always nice to know I'm not the only one stalking you. Right?
The only stalker.
So, yeah.
Oops, that's funny.
Sorry. Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. I know you're a busy girl. And once again, people can find you on your website at fresheggsdaily.com and on Facebook. What's probably your favorite social media platform?
Right now it's Instagram. Facebook has kind of gotten too big and I can't keep up really. Yeah. So if somebody does have a question that they really need answered, actually emailing me is the best way, Lisa@fresheggsdaily.com, because I do answer all my email. I admit that I don't get to all the questions on Facebook because it's just impossible to keep up. It moves so fast. But I do like Instagram, and on Instagram, I tend to share like other things, like you mentioned, more about our house and our property and, going for a walk in the woods or our dogs or whatever. So, if you get tired of the purely chicken stuff, Instagram, has more just kind of like regular life stuff. And my Facebook page, Duck Eggs Daily, does focus on the ducks. So if you are specifically interested in learning about ducks, then head over there. That's
great. And if anyone's watching today and you're interested in booking Lisa to speak, you're a great speaker. You literally filled that room at both occasions I've caught you at. So hopefully they can visit your website.
Yeah.
You did great. You just needed to bring a chicken with you or a duck. Right?
That's true. And I just think that having one, at least for part of the talk, it just gets people engaged. And I think it's fun because, some people might not have seen a duck, especially up close. You see ducks like in a pond or something, but, to be able to come up and actually pet them or touch them, or it's kind of neat. I mean, I didn't realize when we first started raising chickens, they're really soft. Like when you pet them, it's feathers, but they're so soft. And that really surprised me because I didn't expect a chicken would be like soft and pettable, So I think a lot of people just don't, they don't get close up to these animals, and it's kind of neat to be able to see them face to face.
All right. Well, thank you again. That's awesome. I'm almost wondering now, maybe I should do ducks instead of chickens. We'll see.
You should. You totally should.
Thanks for inspiring me.